You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Now let's take a look at other international stories of the day. On to the EU meet in Brussels. The 27 European Union leaders are meeting for a one-day summit in Brussels with a busy agenda. They are discussing Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Syria's power transition and protests in Georgia. Also on the agenda are migration reforms and preparing for a possible Donald Trump comeback. Before the summit, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky urged the EU and the US to stay united for peace in Ukraine.
For us, it's very important, especially from the very beginning of next year. We need very much unity between the United States and EU and countries of Europe. This is very important. We need this unity to achieve peace. And I think only together the United States and Europe can really stop Putin and save Ukraine.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, upon reaching in Brussels, said that a Christmas ceasefire plan for Ukraine is on the table.
The plan is on the table. That is, you can take it or leave it. So it's a very simple. It's not a complicated, bureaucratic plan. It's a very simple human plan. Just don't let thousands of young guys to die at Christmas time. That's so simple. And change the big quantity of numbers of war prisoners. Let them go home to their family for the Christmas days. So it's not more than several days of peace. Even in the First World War, which was the biggest bloodshed in our history, Christmas time, the first year, there was a ceasefire. So it's not a complicated, politically motivated plan. It's not a game. It's a simple human proposal. Don't kill each other for some days at the Christmas night.
Russian President Vladimir Putin held annual end-of-the-year news conference in Moscow on Thursday, where he spoke on various topics, including internal Russian politics, economy, as well as foreign policy and the conflict in Ukraine. Speaking on Ukraine, Putin said that Russian forces were moving towards achieving their primary goals on the battlefield in Ukraine and were taking control of significant territory every day.
Combat operations are a complex thing, and therefore it is difficult and pointless to guess what lies ahead. But that is exactly what is happening, and we are moving, as you said, towards achieving our primary task, which we outlined at the beginning of the special military operation.
As Russia-Ukraine conflict escalates, Russian air defense systems repelled a Ukrainian attack on Thursday as 10 missiles targeted Rostov region of southern Russia. The attack started a fire at the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery. That was the second time in 6 months that the facility had been hit. Meanwhile, in an overnight retaliatory attack, Russia launched 85 drones targeting Ukraine on Thursday. 40 imitator drones out of the total did not reach their targets and 45 others were shot down. No damages or casualties in Kiev were reported by Ukraine's officials, though explosions could be heard as the city's air defenses attempted to shoot down the drones with small arms fire. After Assad's ouster from Syria, global diplomatic attention has shifted toward the formation of a transitional government. The international community has expedited efforts to establish peace and stability in the war-torn nation. Suggestions are pouring in from the UN headquarters to member nations, ranging from holding democratic elections to removing rebels from the US list of terrorist individuals and organizations. DD India's Akhilesh Suman has more.
With a view to transform the nation from an authoritarian to a modern democratic dispensation, the United Nations has urged Syria's new rulers to hold free and fair elections.
There is a lot of hope that we can now see the beginning of a new Syria. A new Syria that, in line with Security Council Resolution 2254, will adopt a new constitution that will ensure that it is a social contract, a new social contract for all Syrians, and that we will have free and fair elections.
The UN suggestion is to accommodate several rebel groups in Syria through a democratic process, making a UN-monitored solution potentially more effective. Turkey's President Erdogan has urged the US and other nations to lift sanctions on Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, popularly known as HTS, and remove the group from the terrorist list. HTS was previously linked to Al-Qaeda but severed ties with the terrorist network in later years. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has cautioned HTS to learn from the Taliban's continued global isolation due to its rigid religious views and refusal to adopt democratic and liberal policies for Afghan citizens, minorities and women. Visiting UN humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher called for a significant boost in aid for Syria, noting that 7 in 10 people require urgent assistance due to dire living conditions. As part of his visit, Fletcher met with the representatives of the HTS, including its leader Ahmad al-Shara and interim Prime Minister Mohammad al-Bashir. Positive feedback from these meetings has raised hope about the group's willingness to engage constructively. In a symbolic development, the country's new administration has kept key institutions running, with a commercial flight departing from Damascus airport to Aleppo on Wednesday, the first since Assad's removal and his subsequent flight to Russia. With HTS stepping up diplomatic contacts with countries that once viewed Assad as a pariah and establishing a transitional leadership that will govern the country until March 1st, hopes are rising that Syria will embrace modern governance while avoiding obstructionist sectarian laws. So the international community is watching closely how Syria will navigate this critical transition. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
Israel today said that it struck military targets belonging to Yemen's Houthi rebels after intercepting a missile fired by the group. Israeli army spokesman said that IDF conducted precise strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructure in capital Sana'a.
The IDF conducted precise strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructures in Sana'a, which the Houthis have been using in ways that effectively contributed to their military actions. Israel will not hesitate to act in order to defend itself and its citizens from the Houthis' attacks. The Houthis have been carrying out attacks against Israel in violation of international law, and the Houthi regime is a threat to peace and security in the region.
Earlier, the Israeli military said that sirens were sounded in numerous areas in central Israel after a missile was launched from Yemen. The IDF said that the missile was intercepted by the Israel's Iron Dome defenses before crossing into Israeli territory. A French court on Thursday sentenced Dominique Pellicotte, a Frenchman, to the maximum term of 20 years jail for committing and orchestrating the mass rapes of his now former wife, Giselle Pellicotte. 72-year-old Dominique Pellicotte has admitted to drugging his wife for almost a decade so he and strangers he recruited online could rape her. Tension was palpable in the courtroom, where a heavy police presence was deployed. Dominique will not be eligible for parole until he has served 2/3 of his sentence. His 50 co-defendants in the case were also convicted by the court with no acquittals. And next, we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Myanmar's ruling junta's Foreign Minister Tharn Sway briefed neighbours on plans for the 2025 elections amid civil war. He further outlined the political roadmap and progress on election preparations, including a population census and the registration of 53 political parties. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer welcomed Sultan Hassan Al Bolkiah of Brunei at the Downing Street on Thursday. The leaders posed for photos before holding a bilateral meeting. The meeting follows Starmer's recent talks with Qatar's Emir to strengthen ties with the Gulf nation. European aerospace group Airbus tested a kit on Wednesday that converts A400M planes into firefighting aircraft in just 2 to 3 hours. The system can draw up 20 tons of water to help tackle severe wildfires fueled by climate change. You're watching DD India Live, still to come on the show. DRDO and IIT Delhi collaborate with industry to develop clothing for extremely cold climates and bulletproof jackets. Christmas festivities bring smiles on the faces of people all across the world.
I want to use this opportunity to congratulate IIT Delhi because this is the first center of excellence where this transition has really happened.
लार्ज स्केल प्रोडक्शन में जाए और हमारी सर्विसेज सोल्जर्स के लिए एक्चुअली इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाए, तो ये हमारे लिए एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण स्टेप है. फर्स्ट स्टेप towards seeing that we can actually build technology which can scale and make a difference for our services and our armed forces. We want to provide, through our knowledge and our research, a competitive edge for our soldiers and our services.
Germany's ailing economy and that of 8 other European countries has come under scrutiny of the European Union. Brussels fears that these member states' economic woes could hurt the entire bloc. Joining us with more is DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu in Berlin. Chiponda, could you tell us more about this report?
Thanks for having me. Well, the European Commission has an early warning system for identifying countries whose economies could potentially destabilize the whole bloc's economic system, and that is the Alert Mechanism report. And in the 2025 edition, the EU has identified Germany as one of 9 countries that experienced what it calls macroeconomic imbalances this year. Now, other major European economies on that list include Italy, the Netherlands, and Sweden. Brussels looks for warning signs of economic issues from various macroeconomic indicators, including unemployment rates, debt levels, credit flows, and property prices. Now, they help Brussels identify potential problems, such as a high current account deficit for a country or explosive real estate prices that would potentially spill over and have a negative impact on other EU member states.
Okay, Chiponda, have there been any bright spots mentioned in the report?
Well, the European Commission said that the financial sector in the bloc has been showing resilience and banks have benefited from higher interest rates. Now, banks have actually been passing on higher borrowing rates more quickly on loans than on deposits, and that has boosted bank profitability, especially for European banks that rely more heavily on deposit funding. But the report also said that the non-bank financial sector has some risks linked to the tightened financial conditions. And given the connectedness between the banking and non-banking sectors, disruptions in investment and, of course, insurance could also spill over to banking. And of course, a lot of what we may see next year here with the European economy will, of course, largely depend on the macroeconomic situation and the global economic landscape.
Okay, thank you, Chiponda. Chiponda Chimbelu reporting from DW Berlin. And ahead of the holiday season, dressed as Santa Claus, an employee of the Jerusalem municipality distributed Christmas trees in the Holy Land. This brought smiles on the faces of people who also got flying kisses. As he passed by waving to them, Santa also clicked pictures with them for memorable keepsakes. That's it in this broadcast. But before we go, India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platform. Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you want great content for free, you can download Waves today. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app as well. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.